Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. It is Sunday night, and you know what that means. It is time to talk about The Mandalorian. We are on the back half of season two. It's really sad to say. We have 4 episodes left to talk about, and doing that with me, as always, we have Milton Weber and Ben Maynard. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good,
Doing
pretty
pretty
good.
good.
Getting over Thanksgiving, trying to get back in the swing of things after a couple days of leisure. But here we go, right into the thick of it. But before we talk about that awesome episode, number 5 for the season, we're going to go take it back to last week. We didn't get a chance to hear from Milton. He was out that week, but we want to hear his thoughts on the siege. What'd you think of it, man?
I really enjoyed that episode. And like I said to all the fans out there, I apologize I couldn't do last week's episode, but I really enjoyed the episode last week. I thought it was well written, action packed. It's what we needed to push along the story. Now, clearly, with what happened last week to what we're getting this week, I thought it helped tie in seamlessly to where we are currently with the Mandalorian. I'm really interested to see what's going on with those clones and where are we at with the Empire. Because again, I think with what this episode told me, we need more Empire story. So I'm hoping with what we got in episode 5, we get more of that in the next 3 episodes, and hopefully it pays off in the finale.
Oh, heck yeah. There's a lot of awesome things teased. And, we got Carl Weathers directing an episode, which you can't expect any less of that awesome guy because he gave us a killer action episode and nothing less. So, definitely some great stuff in that episode. But you're right, man. We're here to talk about episode number 5 of season 2. That is chapter 13, The Jedi. And let me know, guys, because I did not expect to see Ahsoka within the first like 20 seconds of the episode.
Right.
I was thinking, oh, they're gonna hold it for like half of the episode. It's gonna be Mando. We gave our predictions, I believe, last week, me and Ben, about like how it would look, and we were both way wrong. Like she's in the thick of a battle, and as soon as this thing opens and just kind of glances back at the camera, like, oh my gosh, it's happening. All those rumors and leaks for months that we've been talking about. And I'm one of those people that has been thinking, oh, well, all the rumors and everything, but they could still be wrong. So until I actually see her, I will not even believe it. Even though somebody mentioned the name of Ahsoka Tano a couple episodes, we knew it was happening. What was your guys' reaction to like your first look at Ahsoka Tano in live action? This is a monumentous occasion people have been waiting for over a decade. Not even sure it would ever happen.
Wow. Honestly, I thought I'm kind of surprised that they started off the way they did. Just give us an action scene of her just wrecking people in that forest. I thought it was amazing. The way she looked, they were true to character. Now I've seen some complaints online about her stubs were shorter than normal. You know what? I'm okay with that. I think it translated well into live action. I think if they were longer, it would have been a little over the top. And clearly, they're working with prosthetics, probably with some CGI mixed with that. So you have to make sure it's function abilities when it comes to action scenes. So I'm fine the way she looked. I thought Rosario Dawson was spot on, man. Just the way they introduced her was perfect. Again, I was like a 10-year-old kid watching this episode, and those lightsabers, like, oh my god, like they were amazing. Like, oh, I, I'll get into it further, but go ahead, guys.
I'll take it away, Ben.
Oh yeah, I mean Milton, you just nailed most of my points. I was floored. Like you should have seen my jaw at 3 o'clock in the morning. 20 seconds into the episode, I was like, "Whoa,
Yeah.
Ahsoka!" Starting out that quick. I was just, like I said, floored. I couldn't believe it. And like you were saying, Rosario Dawson, she crushed it. Both, looking the part as well as just her overall acting throughout the episode. I just thought Ahsoka, you know, like I tweeted earlier in the week, this episode was going to have a very historic moment for Star Wars fans. Like, sure, it may not be as big as the "I'm your father" thing or any of that, but it's historic because we're getting, we're really getting like, sure, we had Bo-Katan crossover from Clone Wars and Rebels,
Mhm.
but now we're getting like a central figure from Clone Wars and Rebels crossing over into the live action universe. So that's like it's significant, it's historic, and I think it's basically going to be leading to many implications for future projects potentially over at Lucasfilm. So I just think Ahsoka. I think she was great, and I was just really impressed. And as you said, Milton, I've seen some people talk about the head tails and things
Mhm.
like that, but I was reading an article. One of the reasons why, apparently, anyways, they were saying the head tails looked that way, or they had to design them that way, is because for the stunts they were, when they were performing stunts and scenes like that, it would have been like too clunky,
Right.
basically. So
Which makes
that's
sense to
kind.
me. I'm totally fine with that. Like you
Yep.
have to make sure that it looks good on camera, which we all know it did, and
Oh,
but you have to make sure it's functional for action scenes. I mean, because Ahsoka is a legit fighter and she's very athletic and she moves very well, so it would make sense that her prosthetics would be functional and appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
definitely. My thing with that as well is just, sure, we can talk about costume design, but also, it's been however many years since we've seen her on screen technically.
Right.
So, maybe she's developed differently, things like that. I mean, heck, even from Star Wars Rebels to like A New Hope, Darth Vader's helmet looks a little bit different. So, there's some differences between animation and the live action realm.
Yeah. So my initial reaction was of the people I were a little bit disappointed. Not gonna lie. I seen her and I just was like, something's off. Like,
Hmm.
and what bothers me about it is like we just got done watching Bo-Katan as like the best possible example of how you can transfer a character from animation and do it in live action and make it almost like a one to one. So, having seen that and having like the bar set so high, when I seen Ahsoka, and I was like, okay, like it's obviously the head tails. They're the ones they're what's giving it away for me right now.
Right.
And I realized I'm gonna get used to it. Like I'm just gonna accept it. Like this is the version of the live action one. But then I go back to thinking about the Twi'leks like Ala Secura. I think about Shakti and like how they were filmed in live action and able to do stunts. And then obviously they're nothing near as good as this stuff, but I'm also thinking as well, like this is the 21st century. Like you guys can do some kind of CGI to extend the Montrels is what they're technically called
Hmm.
on the Togruta species. So I mean, there's always that as an option. Maybe they'll go and hear enough backlash with this, and they'll maybe do something in post for the next season, or they'll have like a edit and they'll put it on Disney Plus again or something like that. That's my hope. But again, it's not a big deal in the large scheme of things. It's not like the character itself has been damaged by what she has said or what she has done. Um,
Hmm.
but I will say something else that kind of stuck at me was the fact that, and granted, these are not good people, right? These are not good people she's killing, but oh my gosh, she just like massacred these people.
Loved it.
Like it was like almost like Sith level of destruction. So I'm like, oh man, she has really just unleashed like her power. And it's called the Jedi this episode, but I'm like, she's definitely no Jedi. We know that she's no Jedi, but man, she is really like seething like Anakin almost, like the way she was just like taking these fools out. So did that jump out at you at all about how she was almost like overly aggressive with these guys?
Look, man, I thought it was perfect. Look, I said this from one of our earlier videos, and I said the way we see Ahsoka, she better be wrecking people with those sabers. That's what I wanted to see, and that's what we got. Because even how they shot some of the violence, like whenever she cuts that one guy in, or the I mean the guy or the robot, but they turn the camera, they cut it to where you see the front of the bell, and she slices the bell. You still see that guy get sliced if you look closer. Like
Oh,
his body falls apart,
whoa.
and but they hit it well, so you can still see it get cut,
What?
but they
I
still
didn't
want to
know
keep it at
that.
that PG-13 violence. Yeah, go back and watch it. You'll see him
Huh.
still be cut in half, but
Oh,
they had the bell kind of like be that same like linear way his body was, and it fell the same way. Perfect, because she is an aggressive character. Think about it. She was trained by Anakin and trained by Obi-Wan. Okay? Those guys can be aggressive and also be reserved at the same time. Mostly Anakin, he's aggressive. We all know that. Dark side, spoilers. Um, but like I said, the way she fights, there's times in the animation she got carried away. We all know this about her. She can get hot-headed at times.
True.
She can be arrogant. She can be cocky, but also she can be very still when she needs to be. I thought it was perfect how she fought. And
Okay.
this is why I'm going to rant a little bit and say, sequel trilogy, Kathleen Kennedy, you should have saw what Dave Filoni and John Favreau did, because they know how to use Jedis that can fight. Okay? Kylo would get wrecked by Ahsoka. Rey would get wrecked by Ahsoka. Like, the way she fought was perfect. Loved it. Can't say anything bad about how she used those sabers. I did see Grace Randolph talk a little shit, though, about how she felt that Rosario Dawson needed more saber training. Well, come on. This is the first time she's as a Star Wars character,
Really?
playing a character. She's going to get better with the training. All right? And again,
But they have
she
stunt
fought
doubles
well
doing
enough. Like, come on. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm sorry, man. Ahsoka was perfect the way she wielded those sabers. Makes me more mad about the sequel trilogy, but go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, just talking about the opening sequence, we talked about Ahsoka and our initial impressions upon her appearance. Talking about the actual the backdrop of this episode and the tone it set and the themes that it presented, this like completely just wasteland of a planet. I want to know more about what the heck is on this planet, because I thought that was super fascinating. It's very smog-like. I don't know if the planet naturally looks like that, where it's barren, or if there was like a nuclear type of Star Wars version of like Fallout that happened on this planet. All these people, these soldiers are wearing these awesome costumes. I got to shout out to the people involved with the costumes. These looked awesome. They gave me very much like a Solo like Min band feel, where they were like those mud troopers, but they had like the plague doctor gas mask looking things. Like, I thought that was really cool how they communicated, garbled feel. It really lended itself unique to something we haven't really seen, at least in my eyes, in live action Star Wars. So I liked how they used the smog or the fog, whatever you want to call it, and how she was moving in between that kind of environment to almost be like imperceptible. Like, she would almost like sort of disappear. Now, did you think that was more of like a camera trick, or was that actually her using the Force to like disappear?
I think, I don't know. I feel like it could have been I feel like it was most likely maybe a camera trick, just to like really set the tone of, you know, uh, just set the tone of the episode. And but then again, it could also be her using the Force as well. It's really hard to say, honestly, just because you don't really know whether you just don't really know. It wasn't really explained, or like they didn't really say, oh no, like this Jedi's like doing this. You know what I mean? There was no lines that said that. So I'm not sure when it comes to that. And then, like you both said, this whole like the city, the environment, everything, it was just set up so nicely. Like, just all the cinematography for the shots, they were great. And then one thing also I thought of while watching this episode, so with Dave Filoni being involved, he was on the show Avatar: The Last Airbender on Nickelodeon in the early 2000s. And for anyone has seen it, there was this city in the show called Ba Sing Se, where pretty much you had like the higher up rulers, and then you had like the really poor people. Like, there was no in between. And like this episode really reflected a lot of that from that Avatar show. So I thought that was pretty interesting, just seeing how that was, because I mean, I'm sure Dave Filoni puts like little callbacks to his own works, into the show. So that kind of gave me like Avatar vibes from that city in that show.
I honestly, I would agree with that. I felt this episode too, when it comes to the scenery, Chris, was very samurai feeling.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just how it was like. It kind of reminded me of like some scenes out of I don't know if you've seen the anime show Afro Samurai back in like 2005, 2006. But even how the cinematography for that particular animation was very like, still, calm, relaxed. Even with the action scenes, I felt the action scenes were very calm and wasn't over the top, if that makes sense. Even with how Ahsoka fought Morgan, and how the Mandalorian had to stare down with that other guy, I forget his name. Very much samurai-esque. And again, we all know the callbacks from Lucas and the
Oh yeah.
Kurosawa
Oh
films.
yeah.
So clearly, I think Filoni took a lot from that as well, and I think this ties into with the whole Avatar Airbender thing as well too. How those were shot because they're very much samurai feeling as well. You know,
Yep.
with the cinematography, the look, the feels, the sounds. I thought the music was well done too, which
Oh, the
gave a
music
lot
was
to the feel of the
phenomenal.
planet. So
Yeah, real quick shout out to the chat room. We got Chris Forsyth in here. We got Ward Lafferty, the Lowdown Show. We got Steven Schinder. Steven Schinder is actually chiming in on what we were talking about just a minute ago about seeing Ahsoka a little bit more violent than usual. He's saying we've seen Ahsoka behead Mandalorians in the Clone Wars. Forgot
yes,
about that. But this feels different from what we've seen of Ahsoka being defensive in season 7 and Rebels. Yes, it's very much this episode where it's like that's why I was taken back too, because that first sequence, like she's straight up like Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi in Jabba's palace, like it's just approaching, like, give me the information now. And they're like, we can kill 10 of these people. How about 100? And she's just like not even budging. She's like, well, I'll give you a day. Like she is totally the dominant character in this
yeah.
situation, and she is not taking it. Like she wants this information. We'll get into what that information is later in this review. But yes, going back to Dave Filoni as the student to pupil of George Lucas, he's directed 2 other episodes so far with The Mandalorian. This is head and shoulders higher than the other ones. Like he's learned from those 2
Facts.
episodes, and this is probably one of the strongest directed episodes we've seen this season. It really told this great standalone story that if you hadn't watched any other of the Mandalorian episodes, you can just sit back, watch this. There's an awesome Jedi Master, there's a Hunter, they team up. They're not usually supposed to team up, apparently, and then they both go their separate ways. And you can watch it like that. A 40-something minute episode unfolds before you, and you can come away being very entertained, but also knowing that this could be part of a larger story. Getting into more of that relationship between the Mandalorian, we got Grogu, and we have, of course, Ahsoka Tano. So, what'd you guys think first off of that first like little skirmish between Mando and Ahsoka? Because I thought it was awesome the way we actually see Beskar
Hmm.
actually able to deflect lightsabers blew my mind. Because up until now, I thought that Cortosis, which was from Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast, was the only material that could deflect lightsabers. So I was amazed by that. But just the way that Mando was like using the flamethrower and then using the whipcord, and then Ahsoka like jumps over the thing. It was badass. It was like only like 15 seconds, but it was well done, and it was a way to set up what was going to happen next.
Oh man, it was great. It showed the efficiency and the persistency that these characters had as fighters. You know, Mandalorian, we all know that he can clearly fight. We know Ahsoka's history. I feel like if these two were in a one-on-one battle, it would be one hell of a sparring match. Um, but like I said, I thought the way the Beskar was used, man, was awesome. Because again, like we're still learning a lot more about the Beskar armor and again more of the lore of the Mandalorian. But seeing how it holds up against sabers, like it makes me want to like get a Mandalorian outfit. I mean, I'm not even
Yeah.
gonna lie, like that'd be fire. But even seeing the Beskar staff or the spear was cool too. Just how it can match a saber against some of the most lethal Jedi
Oh my
out there.
gosh.
Again, it goes to show that this show is doing a really good job at explaining and really making the Mandalorian culture something that is going to stick within Star Wars for the rest of eternity. Like we're learning more and more as we go. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I'm sure we're going to learn more things about the weaponry of the Mandalorians as we go further in the show, which is another great thing that they're expanding. Not only just the Anakin Skywalker story and Luke Skywalker story, they're expanding just in this universe when it comes to just little things like vehicles, weapons, different culture, which is a beautiful thing about Star Wars, in particular this show.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was so surprising. Like that was another thing that made me, well, there was plenty of things that made me go whoa in this episode.
Yeah.
But knowing that the Beskar, was impervious to lightsabers, like
Mhm.
that shocked me. And also that shows too, Ahsoka was ready to take the Mandalorian out.
Yeah.
Like, she was ready to take Mando out like if he wouldn't have said Bo-Katan, she probably would have, ended him. So, like, also again, like we echoed to echo our previous points, the fact that the fact that the Mandalorian is this great bounty hunter in the galaxy. Look, it still shows how powerful Ahsoka is, in that type of a scenario. So that's really great. And then I just love the fact that you know just just the back and forth, because again, we've gotten a lot of the Mandalorian, we've got a lot of him in action, but some of his opponents have been maybe like subpar because they're bounties he's going after, or Imperial stormtroopers or whatever. And Ahsoka being an opponent, like that's a top tier opponent. So it was very, very impressive seeing her, him go up against her, and then also having the whole backdrop of him trying to like be like, hey, slow down, I need to have you, talk to this child kid thing I have, which turns out to be named Grogu, but I have to have you train him like that. That type of backdrop, put so much gravitas for the episode, just because what if Ahsoka wouldn't have, after he got violent with her, what if she would have been like, no, I'm not going to even talk to you, or, I'm not even going to associate with you. So I thought it was a really, really good little sequence for it being, 10 or 15 seconds. I thought it was excellent. And which leads into our whole Grogu talk.
Yeah. So we get this awesome breakdown, first off, of the origins of Grogu and about how he actually was part of the Jedi Temple, which would have made him in the same era as Anakin, as Obi-Wan, as Ahsoka. Like, they could have walked by each other in the hallway a couple times going to, Force Class 101 or something. It was definitely something really cool that I didn't know for sure if that was going to be the way they go, but I could see it now. There's going to be like a ton of comics now that are going to be from Star Wars Adventures, IDW. They're going to be like, oh, this was Grogu's first day in his class. Like, there's going to be so many of those ancillary stories that are for kids now. You're going to see it all over the place. But yeah, what'd you guys think about his origins being in the Clone Wars and being taken away before the events of Order 66 or slightly after, whatever that the case was?
I actually really enjoyed the origin story of where he come from, why he's why he's holding back so much. I thought that was very interesting, and that explains a lot of his character. I wasn't a fan of the name. I think they could have maybe chose a different name that's better. Because I think of Goku from Dragon Ball Z every time I hear Grogu, and it's like, oh, okay. But I mean, it could have been something a little bit differently. But again, I love the backstory. I loved why he holds back. But then it was nice to see how Ahsoka's like, okay, I'll test him. He wasn't responding to her like the way he should have been responding. And then she's like, well, why don't you do it? And then he pulled out the metal ball and he treated him like a son. And it was nice to see that he has that connection, but also, like Ahsoka said, that's a dangerous thing. The attachment, she's like, I've seen Jedi fall, the best of them, and we know who she's talking about.
That hit hard,
which was amazing. It's like, I've seen the best of us fall because of attachment and our growth, whatnot. And it's like, that's crazy how that still ties into Anakin, but at the same time, that still shows the dogmatic view of the Jedi, because they're so caught up about, if you're attached to somebody, that's going to lead you down to the dark side. And it's like, no, we want to get away from that. It's actually not bad to love, and it's not bad to have feelings. That's why the Jedi fell. They were so dogmatic in their viewpoints, which led to why Anakin was so, tempted to join the dark side. He's like, I want to love this woman because that's right. And the Jedi still, and even Ahsoka kind of still senses of like, that probably wasn't the best thing to do. And that's why I think she's seeing that with Grogu. But again, it was a great story. I really enjoyed it. I just don't like the name choice of the child. Other than that, I thought it's great storytelling to move forward that character.
Yeah, going to the comments real quick. We got Alex Elkins. Look forward to listening to you guys every week. Thanks a lot, dude. We appreciate it. There you go. Your cousin saying something. Keegan Maynard. He's saying, when they said Grogu, I instantly thought of Rogu, the alien baby from American Dad.
From American Dad.
Not
That's
really sure who that is. Ward Lafferty, he's doing some real good bit of lore here from the Clone Wars. Who were Elsbeth's people? The Ming Po. And I looked that up like a couple hours ago. They're the first arc or episode when Ahsoka and that senator kid are basically on a snow planet, and they run into Bo-Katan and the Death Watch. There's these Asian descent people, and they're all around there, so they're called the Ming Po. So yeah, it could be, especially if Filoni's involved. Maybe it's those people as well. Alex Elkins, do you guys think Thrawn will be? We're gonna save all the Thrawn stuff because we're gonna get to that, so we'll talk about that later. But yeah, definitely. There's some cool stuff. Oh yeah, lowdown shows what I wanted to get to. They said he was trained by many masters. Sounds like he was a special case youngling. Special case youngling. So this guy might have so much power that they had to keep passing him along to not get attached to a certain master for sake of dark side, maybe something like that.
Which is a good point. That's a good point.
I think it actually maybe the way to look at it too. I mean, setting that aside, the only thing is, would he require only one master, or would he maybe require multiple masters because his species ages differently? I mean, I don't know.
True.
Yeah.
But then again, I guess
50 years old, right?
He's 50. But I don't think he was 50. At the Jedi Temple for that long now. You know what I mean? Right. Like he's basically disappeared for 30 years, it sounds like, because he's been...
Oh yeah, that's true.
So like he would only be trained for like 10 years, which is like a normal like state.
Oh yeah.
So I don't think that's the case. I think it could be several that's interesting why he would have many masters in 10 years or something. Right. It's definitely something different about him, which is exactly why Gideon's looking, specifically for him.
And that's where I hope they answer that question. Why do they specifically want this child? Because we all know there are more Force users out there in the galaxy. But what's so special about this kid? And maybe we'll get that answer told in season 3 or season 4.
Yeah, because the Empire, if you guys read the Star Wars Darth Vader Volume 2 written by Charles Soule, the Empire, the Inquisition, they have a list of every surviving Jedi to the records from the Jedi Temple. It's registered. So, yeah, exactly. It's not like they're not just going around saying, hey, we're looking for generic just Jedi. Like, they specifically want him for a reason. So, there's something special about him.
And maybe, too, maybe they think because he's a species like Yoda, and of course, everyone knows who Yoda is.
Yeah.
So maybe they're thinking like, if Yoda was as powerful as he was, maybe this kid has that potential. I'm curious what the chat thinks about that. Like, why do they want the child so much?
Oh yeah. Well, like even one thing also about that scene, like when she was talking, giving his backstory, everything. I loved hearing her say, Yoda on screen. Like, just hearing, a character like in The Mandalorian say Yoda and all that. Awesome. I just thought that was so. It always gives me chills anytime like Yoda comes up. Like even like in the Last Jedi sequel trilogy stuff, like seeing Yoda or getting Yoda involved is always, it's always brings kind of back that magic. And that's another thing I think about the whole environment of, where they were training at and everything in this episode. It felt like Dagobah.
I know. It did.
It felt just like Dagobah because you heard some creatures. I mean, we saw. Sure, we'll bring it up in the Easter egg discussion later. Morai, the owl.
Yeah.
All kinds of little things. So I just thought it was a really, really good scene. In general,
it was such a heartwarming scene too, because you just start to feel sad for Grogu. He looked genuinely put down and disappointed in himself. Like he's like looking at the ground, just like the way the puppet's face is so expressive. Like you can just see the sadness on his face. Like he's given up. Like he can't do this. And then it's that triumphant moment when Din actually gets through to him with that little ball. See, they connected. That was brilliant. They connected it to that little ball he likes that he was playing around last season. Then in this episode, he's able to force grip this thing. And Din, man, oh man, the performance by Pedro Pascal, you could just hear it in his voice, like how proud he is as this adopted father. Like that really got to me. I was like, oh man, this is a lot more than just a guy in a metal suit and a little alien. Like there's an actual tangible connection between these two characters here.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the way we got to see that father son, you know, story being told was beautiful. And again, I think as Star Wars fans, of course, being told that attachment isn't a good thing by the Jedi. Again, I think it's important that this child and this Mandalorian character have that attachment. It drives the story. It makes their characters more important. It makes their story more important. So just to see how proud he was as like a dad figure when he just moved it, and he was really excited, and you can clearly see the excitement in Grogu. Did you guys notice that they played like the Yoda Force theme
Yeah, oh
when she
yeah.
was talking
Yep.
about him?
Oh
Yeah.
That
yeah.
made me like chill
Oh
up for a minute.
man.
I'm thinking we are like in Dagobah because I felt like, oh my god, this is Empire Strikes Back. Like just
Yes.
that particular
Yep.
scene. It's just those little tidbits of what they're doing that makes this show so great.
And the way that Ahsoka was talking about the Force was like something straight
Yeah.
out of A New
Oh,
Hope. Like it's an
son.
energy field that surrounds us and all living things. I
Yep.
was like, oh my gosh, they are really going straight for the hardcore
Yep.
like explanation of the Force that we knew from the very first movie. It's scenes like these that are just so priceless in Star Wars, and I love it because there's a lot of mainstream viewers out there that aren't into this nearly as much as we all are, watching YouTube videos and making YouTube videos about Star Wars, little tiny lore bits and whatnot. It's awesome that they're expanding it and doing it in a way that I think is, ensuring other people like, look, like we're gonna start to get a little deeper in this, but we're gonna take it slow. Like it's not going too far in the deep end with them, but it's good to know that we're actually making this kind of progress into the Force and actually learning more as people that have been around this stuff. It really is enlightening. And seeing Ahsoka, I do want to talk about Ahsoka, her maturity, how she has grown in all these years. We're not sure what she has done, but I love it how she's a stoic master at this point. Like you can see how seasoned she is as a warrior, having traveled the galaxy in several wars throughout her life. Like she is war weary, but she is also has a sense of knowledge about her. And again, Rosario Dawson, I think she really nailed this. I do think she really nailed this character.
Oh yeah.
Totally
I
agree. Totally agree. Ben, go ahead. I'm sorry, man.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, I think Rosario Dawson nailed it. I think like you were saying, Chris, the maturity of Ahsoka translated really well versus just like the playful Ahsoka we've had before, which isn't a bad thing, but people grow. It's been years since we've seen her, so it's really good seeing that maturity. It's good also seeing, I think, from like an outside, non-Star Wars related, it's good from like I think as well a Dave Filoni maturity point as well. So, with Filoni directing this episode, my concern also was, is this going to just be the Ahsoka Tano show, And it wasn't. And I think that shows his growth and maturity as a director to not just make her the only sole focus of the episode, because she was in it, but she was in it just like Bo-Katan was, just like Cobb Vanth was,
Yep.
just like Phil, whoever our next character is going to be. She was in it sharing the spotlight, but she wasn't the spotlight. The spotlight was still Din and Grogu. And so I really think it was good maturity on Filoni's part. It was good maturity, the character of Ahsoka herself, and I was very very impressed with her character in this.
Yeah, and I think we could actually talk about it now. The fact that we've gotten all these rumored big name characters that you just listed there, and we all came out of this episode, at least me and you, and probably Milton. I'm not going to speak for him yet, about feeling like, yeah, they've done a good job with these characters that have steered their own series in
Yes.
huge ways. And I was worried too. I was worried. That's why I wasn't accepting that they're going to have these big characters, because I'm like, oh God, they're going to tear this show away from Din. And that's the great part about season one is there's absolutely no connections to anything else except the dark saber at the very end. Everything else was nice and all fitted in this brand new universe. And here we go. We're expanding out. We're going to lose it all. And that's absolutely false, because yes, by the end of the episode, it seems very safe to assume she's going to be on her own way. We probably won't see her again, at least in this season. But again, it worked well because he was going for a Jedi, right? That's the whole purpose of this season, was him to
Right.
try to track down a Jedi. What did he do in this episode? He tracked down Ahsoka Tano, found out that, oh, there's more to this than I expected. Now we have to go somewhere else. So it does very much follow the formula of The Mandalorian, like I was talking about earlier. Like, this is a standalone episode. You could watch this by itself and be satisfied. But by the end of this episode, there's another plot thread. There's another plot thread that we have to follow. So it does continue on that Mandalorian trend, which is really the only thing out there that I can think of from a TV show that kind of does this sort of formula where it's almost episodic, but not completely, because there is that through line.
Totally agree. I have 2 points to make on that. One, again, the way they took all these characters again, Bo-Katan, Cod Vance, and Ahsoka, they told their story in their episode, and which then pushed the story further for what the Mandalorian needs to do with the child. So again, they served their purpose. They didn't hijack the episode. They didn't hijack the show. And I think a lot of people probably were worried about that, hearing about these characters. But again, Dave Filoni and Favreau, most importantly, made a point to say, hey, this is still focused on this one particular character and his mission with this child. But these other characters that came through served their purpose, which we all know was most likely will lead to like some type of Ahsoka series. Maybe I know a Boba Fett series is going to come, of what there's being told about. Was then this my second point reminds me of potentially the Mandalorian being like the launching point of like their Arrowverse. We had
Mm-hmm.
Arrow with Stephen Amell in 2012 or whatnot. The backdoor
Yep.
pilot of the Flash was, a backdoor plot was led to his next show. And you look at those two episodes in that Arrow season 2, Flash did not hijack that show. He was a character
Yep.
to serve Oliver's story and his purpose, which then led to Barry's show. That show, they did a good job with that, which again, you expanded now to the Arrowverse. I think we're getting that with The Mandalorian. I think Filoni, Favreau, Deborah Chow, all those great directors and showrunners see this as a launching point to tell more individual stories within Disney Plus, which is amazing. We never would have thought we would have gotten this 10 years ago.
Mm-mm.
We always thought Star Wars was a film property, an animation property. We're getting TV. George has been talking about this for what, 15 years?
Yeah.
He had what, 80
Yep.
scripts at one point, but he just didn't have the finances and the technology yet to tell those 80 stories or whatever it was. We're getting it now. It's amazing that these characters are really being fleshed out, but at a more micro level, which is amazing. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the characters didn't hijack what the Mandalorian still needs to do as his full mission.
Yes, yes. And like you said right there, talking about splitting the characters up, introducing them, having something meaningful for them to do, but then giving the option to be like, hey, viewer, if you like this character, guess what? We're going to start making a series about them and you can learn more about that certain character you might have
Absolutely.
enjoyed. And the main reason why we're going to talk about that is because, well, there was just a little character name that was mentioned toward
Yep.
the end of the episode. So the reason why the Mandalorian was on the planet was to find Ahsoka, and the reason why she was on the planet was she was looking for information for a certain Grand Admiral of the name of Thrawn. So
Ooh.
that literally made me scream, what? At 7 a.m. And I was like, oh, I probably woke up the house, but oh well.
You know what though? I
Oh,
didn't even
yeah.
expect that. That's what's crazy.
Nope.
Like I heard the rumors, but I still didn't believe it. There's no way I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna bring Thrawn into this show, or even gonna introduce him or name drop him. Whew, when I heard that, I'm thinking, let's get it. I want to see Ezra. I want to see Sabine. I want to see all those guys come back.
Oh yeah, definitely. My thing with that whole scene is, for one, it's just the backdoor pilot to another show.
Absolutely.
because I was talking about it to a few of my friends, my cousin, over the weekend. If the name Grand Admiral Thrawn was relevant to the Mandalorian, Din would have been in that scene, or Ahsoka would have said after that fight, "Hey, I'm looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn," but she never mentioned it to him. That was
That's a good
basically
point.
her saying it to us as viewers, like, "Hey, I'm looking for Thrawn. Be on the lookout for my new show coming out." So I think that was pretty much her saying that. and that was an amazing scene. Oh, and shout out to the magistrate, the woman in that. She's actually the goddaughter of Bruce Lee. If you didn't know that.
Yeah, it's
Yes, that
so
was awesome.
cool.
Yep. So that was a great scene, and it was just cool. It was cool seeing Ahsoka actually have to put up a little bit of a struggle in that scene, though, when she was getting that information from her,
Yeah.
because I'm glad they didn't have her just basically go, Vader Rogue One. I thought it was really, really good showing the magistrate putting up somewhat of a fight. But, then when Ahsoka was like, okay, now, I'm gonna like end this, like she basically stopped it. So I thought it was a really great scene. And then, like you both said, me watching this at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, like I was like, whoa, like, Grand Admiral Thrawn, like that was just crazy. I couldn't even fall asleep after watching that episode. Like it was just crazy. It was just such a crazy name drop. Like I just, I just, now I have a million thoughts because we have so many potentials for potential shows, potential
Absolutely.
castings, like who, all the door just basically got slung wide open.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I totally agree. Totally agree.
so this whole episode, I thought was very interesting how she was referring to "Where's your master? Where's your master?" And I never thought of Thrawn as anyone's master. He's just been a military ranking individual. And to give a perspective for those of you that are unsure where Thrawn is in the timeline, so The Mandalorian takes place 5 years after the events of Return of the Jedi. The entire era from A New Hope to Return of the Jedi, I think, is approximately almost like 5 years, that whole gap with
Mhm.
Luke and then killing the Emperor and all. And then I think it's like a year or 2 years before that is when Rebels ended. So Thrawn has been in the Unknown Regions for like 12 years, I'm guessing. 10 to 12 years at this point, since we last seen him when he left off with the Purgle and Ezra. Um, so what the heck has changed? Like how wait, he's somebody's master? Like what the heck is going on? Like he really showed cuz I went back and I watched the episode of Rebels when he's like training on his ship, the Star Destroyer, and he's fighting these sentry droids with like this like different kind of like staff weapon, and he's kicking the crap out of these things, and are these hulking like dark trooper looking droids. So it was interesting because I was like, so like he trained her how to use that weaponry. That combat ability, I believe, is called Ichani, which is from the Old Republic. It's a different kind of way these duelists were using melee and the Force, and not they weren't using the Force, but different kind of techniques to force their opponents back and whatnot. So it's interesting again that he has pupils. He's been training people. He's been training this
Mhm.
specific character with melee abilities in the form of like martial combat like that.
Yeah, and I mean, just to speak on that magistrate, I think let's talk about a couple things. One, the fight. The fight between Ahsoka and her was amazing. It was appropriate, and we all knew that Ahsoka would win because she was that powerful of a character. But I'm not surprised that the magistrate put up a little bit of a fight at first, and then even Ahsoka said it. Don't underestimate her. She built herself up. She built her fleet for the Empire. Like she must be well known and well trained in something to get all that respect, and then to be a pupil of Grand Admiral Thrawn, just like Chris just said, his training, she had to have seen the best of the best when it comes to combat training, hand-to-hand fighting, military tactics. Like she isn't a trash character, so I'm hoping we see her again in the future. Because I don't think she was killed off. We just don't know what happened to her. I'm
No.
assuming she's locked up somewhere. As for Thrawn, yeah, where is he at right now? That's a very good question, and I'm curious to see in future series or even comic books or books what's he been doing all this time? Because it's been, like I said, 5 to 6 years since we've seen him. Um, is he one of the origins of how Snoke was developed? Is he in contact with the Emperor? Because I'm assuming Thrawn would be in contact with Emperor Palpatine. Palpatine trusted him. Um, he was one of those guys that were up that I think Palpatine had him part of the contingency plan. So I think he's been in contact with the Emperor. Those clones that we saw has something to do with, I think, with what Thrawn's doing out there. But I don't know, man. It opened up a lot of questions. Hopefully, we'll get these answers in other series. But man, I think this episode did a lot for this show. I love the conflict between the magistrate and Ahsoka. It was well done. I saw some complaints about how she made Ahsoka look weak at times. Like, no, like that. No, Ahsoka was playing with her. We all know that. Ahsoka wasn't losing, so I thought it was fine.
Yeah, it was interesting because she put up so much of a fight that she actually knocked the lightsaber out of Ahsoka's
Yeah,
hand. Like, that legitimately shocked me because I'm thinking in the back of my mind, this is the same character that took out Darth freaking Maul. Like,
that's
think about that. Like, she went up against a freaking Sith Lord, and yet this non-force sensitive character is giving her this much trouble to fight through? Like, that's why I was like, what? Like,
I hear
she
you,
could,
Chris. Chris, I
she,
don't disagree because at first I was like, wait a minute, there's no way she should like have a chance. But then it's like, you know what? I think Ahsoka was trying to like let that person think she had a chance
I
because
was
she wanted to
thinking the
Well,
think,
same
okay,
thing.
like, oh, I'm gonna get her. And then you notice Ahsoka when they knocked the saber out, she went back to her old form. She
Yeah,
reversed the
yeah,
saber,
yeah,
and how easy it was for her to slice that thing in half. It's like, okay, where's your master at? I'm done with this. You know,
well,
like,
well,
yeah,
I
go ahead,
think
Ben.
that though. Oh, I was gonna say I think that, but also like you were just saying, Chris. You know, if she was trained by Thrawn, like she might have been able to put up a little bit of a fight because of her, you know, training with Thrawn, like presumably military training.
Yeah. I mean, she's no slouch. I mean, I don't think she's a slouch, you know. But again, we all know she wasn't beating Ahsoka.
Yeah,
I think because Ahsoka had other alternative plans. She needed something from that woman. That's why she wasn't going to kill her. She wanted her to think she had a chance to try to get her to lower her guard, or at least like feel like, oh, I'm in control of this battle. And Ahsoka's like, no, you're not. Let's just be done with this.
yeah. Yeah, so it's really cool just to know that this major character is alive, and I still can't get over Thrawn because this is a character that a lot of people had never thought they would see live action, and now since
Yeah,
his name is mentioned, whether we're gonna get him in The Mandalorian season 3 or if we're gonna get him in a whole nother show, I think it's pretty safe to assume we're gonna see him in some shape or form in live action. And who better to play the part than the guy that freaking voices him? Because if you look at Lars Mikkelsen, who actually happens to be
yep.
the brother of Mads Mikkelsen, who plays Galen Erso in Rogue One, the
yeah,
guy could easily portray Thrawn. Like, just throw some blue paint on him, and he'll do a great job. Because I watched him in House of Cards, and he does a great job as the president
yeah,
of Russia. So there, just have him play. But then there's also this funny poster in Star Wars Celebration, Chicago, and it was like this like Star Wars through the ages like poster that went from a Phantom Menace all the way to the Rise of Skywalker, and it had a Rebel section and it had Thrawn, and it looked like Thrawn was being played by Pierce Brosnan. So I know that's definitely
yeah,
a name that is getting thrown around a lot because it's like, oh my gosh, they modeled the Thrawn after him. Why did they do that? Huh? I wonder.
yeah.
Hmm.
Well, that character was designed what in like the early '90s, and
Yeah,
James Bond was
yeah,
really starting to come up again with Pierce Brosnan's in the
uh
'90s.
huh.
So I could see that being the reason why it looked like him because he has that James Bond type haircut.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Oh yeah.
I mean, listen, if I had to pick an actor to play Thrawn, man, Lars wouldn't be a bad one. I have to sit back and think about that. I just want someone that can be menacing, can really deliver a monologue, and can kick some ass.
I think I think another one to throw out there with Lars is Benedict Cumberbatch.
Oh yeah.
I think he
Yeah,
could I think he could nail it.
yeah.
Yeah, so talking about the reward, I see the lowdown show. He's saying wait, oh wait, no, it's actually, oh wait, it's your cousin or your brother. Sorry, I get confused because one of your cousins is on here, and then one of your brothers is always on here. So it's Milton's brother, Christopher, saying, "Just wait until they let
Gotcha.
you didn't use the spear." And the funny thing about the spear, it's all Beskar, obviously. I didn't get this right away, but another role that Pedro Pascal had was as Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper, in Game of Thrones season 5, going up against the Mountain. And we all know what happened at the end of that duel. But before that happened, he was kicking some serious butt with this spear that he was using. So it didn't dawn on me at first, but I'm like, of course they would give Pedro Pascal's character, the Mandalorian, a freaking spear as his main melee weapon
Yeah.
in this series. So I'm like, yes, we're gonna get to see the Red Viper
Right.
in Mandalorian armor.
Let's just hope he doesn't play around this time when using it, because because we know the consequences.
Well, here's
You
the
know,
thing:
like
he's got the helmet now, so he knows that's not
right,
gonna happen.
Gosh.
right, right, right. Um, Did you guys catch who's the gentleman that played the
Michael Bean.
magistrates? Yes, Terminator callback, like having
Yeah.
him, which was awesome. That was
Well,
an awesome little a nugget.
oh yeah, the fun thing about him, Milton, is the fact that I'm not sure if many people caught it, but his line that he says to the Mandalorian when Ahsoka's fighting the magistrate, he says, "I have no quarrels with you," and that's his line from his movie Tombstone, actually.
Oh, that's right. I
Yep.
He
forgot
was
he was
in
in that movie.
Tombstone.
Yep.
Yes, he was in that. Yeah. He
Yep.
was in
That
that.
that
He killed
that's his
those.
line he says to another character in that movie. So I was like, oh, that's a cool little just
I feel like he was one of the
throwback.
outlaws in that movie.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So another mind-blowing moment, at least for me, was at the very end of the episode, and it definitely started pulling at my heartstrings because I was like, "Oh my gosh, he's actually saying bye to Grogu. He's actually going to give him away. Like this is actually happening right now. This is so sad. Like you see him sitting next to him on the ship and he goes out and Ahsoka continues to say, I will not train him. She does not want to get involved with making somebody else turn to the dark side at this point. Um, at least being one of the reasons or the factors in said person doing such a thing. She mentions he has to go to Tython, which is this awesome planet that's in Star Wars Legends. It's the game out there called the Old Republic. If you start a Jedi character, that is your origin planet. You do a couple missions on before you get your ship and you leave the planet. So that is so cool because we haven't seen this in canon. It hasn't been canon until this show mentioned its name. I can't wait to see this place, man, because this is a lot of ramifications, a lot of lore, a lot of Jedi lore we've never seen before. It's always been
Hmm.
about Ilum in Star Wars, but I'm really happy to see other Star Wars Jedi planets starting to come into play here besides that and Octo from the sequel trilogy.
No, I agree, and it's funny though, cause like I'm just looking at a text I got from my brother on Friday when we talked about this, and he'll probably say it in the chat. He said this is why this show pisses him off because they do such a good job at bringing that type of stuff EU into the lore now of canon. And he's like, why couldn't we do this with the sequel trilogies?
Yeah.
Like why couldn't they bring in and like they said they were going to do? They're going to cherry pick off of the EU and Legends, which again we feel like they really didn't. But this show's doing that, and this show is like doing it just enough where it's satisfying the characters and the fans. It's not over the top, and it's enriching the story and driving it further. Why didn't we get this in the sequel trilogy? Kathleen, I put this on your shoulders. You messed that up. Dave Filoni and John Favreau, excellent for bringing that in. Like for really, like you said, Chris, that's from a game that was made in 2002, something like
2000,
that.
well, the Old Republic 2012, but close enough.
2012, but the other one too though that came out
Yeah,
like 2002 when I
yeah.
was in high school. Like you're bringing stuff like that into this show as 2020, 18 years ago. That's amazing. And fans are like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize that. I might go back and play Knights of the Old Republic or the Old Republic." It's beautiful stuff, man.
Oh yeah, it was crazy when she said that. I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
we're actually going this direction,
Yep.
because I was feeling. I honestly was thinking the end of this season was going to be more maybe Imperial focused. Like, of course, we're going to get Gideon because I mean, Mando's getting tracked right now as we speak. So
Absolutely.
we're going to get Gideon at some point. But, I feel like the next episode could be, a potential side story. And then the final two episodes, it'll be like leading up to Tython. And then the final one will be there. So it makes me wonder what more lore, because I'm sure they're going to get into more lore, in the final episode. So it makes me wonder what they're going to get to, who's the Jedi,
Oh,
Grogu. I keep about saying Rogu. Grogu is going to reach out to, um, who's the Jedi he's going to reach out to. And there's, countless possibilities, but just the fact that they're tying in lore like
Yes.
Tython into this is amazing. And I just can't wait to see, just like we saw with Exegol in episode 9, or different planets like these. I just can't wait to see what Tython looks like,
Yeah, that'd be
oh.
pretty
live
dope.
action.
Yeah, so I stand corrected. Thanks to Steven Shinder for correcting me on this. Tython was first introduced in the book Darth Bane Rule of 2. And I freaking love that book. Like,
Yep.
it's one of my favorite Star Wars books. If you guys have not read the Darth Bane, the first
Yeah.
book, and definitely the trilogy, definitely read that next on your list because it's that good. It's Legends, but it's still good. And character of Darth Bane. Hopefully, we'll get that series or something that was rumored
Right.
a couple months ago. Yeah, but Christopher Weber is also saying I don't know much about the older lore, but I always thought Tython was the most likely first temple, and that's what I thought until they said, "Oh, the Octo is the original temple," and I was like, "Oh man," I was like, "Really?"
Yeah, right. That's what we're talking about, man. It's like, come on, you had the pieces there, and luckily they're trying to do that now with this show, and hopefully in our next
Yep.
trilogy of films they do a better job at that. But it's like, man, getting that little stuff is off the chain. Like we want this because a lot of that EU stuff still hasn't even been fleshed out yet. You know, it's like, man, could you imagine Chris going back when they do an Old Republic series of movies? How they just, man, I can't wait. And I'm having faith that now Kathleen will listen to these writers, listen to these fans who grew up on that stuff, and say, hey, this is what the fans will want to see. Let's flush it out, make it a little Disney-fied, but be true to what's already been written before this.
Yeah, I remember at that convention panel for The Mandalorian, for the first ever Mandalorian panel back at Celebration Chicago, and Jon Favreau was like, he just flippantly added, "Oh, we're gonna put some legend stuff in this show," and everybody just started cheering. But it was kind of like one of those promises where like, "Oh, we've
Yep.
been told that before." Like, yeah, they're gonna say that just to appease the hardcore fans. Of course, they're gonna say that for their first live action TV series. They're gonna say anything good to get the people to watch. But here we are in
Mhm.
season 2, and we keep saying it over and over again. They're doing the best job possible doing this right now. And the
Absolutely.
people at Disney have to be watching social media and watching videos like this and saying, "Oh, maybe we've been doing it wrong the whole time. These fans really want this stuff." And like you said, if this leads to stuff like when they start doing this old Jedi lore and people really gravitate toward it, maybe they just say, let's go with that old Republic content faster than we initially anticipated because these people are ravenous for this content. They're eating it up. They're talking about it a heck of a lot. Let's just get this damn thing going. So
Absolutely. I mean, and Ben, actually, I want your thoughts on this, Ben. Like, you've seen the Old Republic cinematic trailers. Remember they did those like three or four, like
Yep.
the Hope and then the Jedi Temple one. Like, if you
Yeah.
take that whole rich story with the twins and stuff like that, and again adapt it to now, like, man, you can bring in so many fans who would say, "Oh God, this is where Star Wars originated from," like the Old Republic prior to the Skywalker trilogy, like right there. And we as fans, we know that story for the most part, but
Yep.
there's things about that story we still don't know about that could be fleshed out. So
Oh yeah.
imagine what's
I
that like, Ben. Do you think they can do something like that?
Yeah, I think, well, like you said, the key word there is adaptation because there'll never
Hmm.
be a straight adaptation because, that's a video game, that's a book, whatever.
Absolutely.
You can't translate those perfectly. And for me as a fan, anyways, I wouldn't want them to translate a book or a video game perfectly because that wouldn't be new content.
Right.
That'd be just,
mm-hmm.
content on screen. So I think they have a few different avenues they could potentially turn that into a show, a movie, whatever. They could either adapt it to where it's Old Republic, or they could, fast forward 1,000 years into the future and adapt it to, kind of adapt a similar storyline but make it futuristic.
Right.
Um,
Which would
so
be,
I
I
think
think that
there's,
would be enough separation. You think?
yeah,
From Okay.
I think that'd be enough separation. It's just, um, that I think they could do it. It just, again, it all falls on execution, who's involved. And like you both were saying, praising Favreau, Filoni. I honestly think, like I love Filoni and everything. I think Filoni needs to be kind of like your creative consultant to the stories and all that for all the projects that go on at Lucasfilm. But I think the head guy, kind of like Kevin Feige with Marvel, I think the head guy needs to be Jon Favreau because I think he can. I think he's a little bit more objective enough where he can kind of rein it back in and be like, hold up, Dave, we can't go this too, go, too much of a
Yeah.
rabbit hole type of thing. So I think Favreau should like, potentially head up like the creative group and then Filoni be like consulting all the stories, everything, and kind of like a dual team up type thing. because there's just countless possibilities for Star Wars, whether it be Old Republic. I mean, we have the High Republic coming here in January,
Mm-hmm.
which that's going to be interesting because they keep releasing excerpts, and I'm sure we're eventually going to get something live action in the High Republic. I feel like it's just
Right.
inevitable. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think we're in a really good state here with all of this.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. That's a
So
good point. Good point.
talking about, we briefly mentioned it about, you know, Grogu has to decide if he wants to use the Force or not use the Force. He has to go to this mountain, this temple on top of this mountain with a sightseeing stone. He sits upon it, and from that point, he can decide his own future, whether he's going to go down that path or not down that path. Let's say he decides he wants to go down that path, then any nearby Jedi will be instantly attracted to this through the Force. And it, by the way, quick aside, I liked how he was able to tell his name to Ahsoka, even though he wasn't able to speak. He was able to connect with her to the Force. I thought that communication was something really cool that was sort of introduced in the sequel trilogy, so it was nice seeing something like that come back. But getting back to the whole who could be the Jedi that shows up, I think this is our best shot at seeing Luke Skywalker, because think about it, Luke Skywalker at this point of his life, he is going throughout the galaxy looking for Jedi artifacts. What would be a great place to go for Jedi artifacts than one of the most ancient Jedi temples in the known galaxy on Tython? I could totally see Luke being nearby, getting a signal, and that's the last scene of this show for this season, is Luke just walking up, kind of like almost like the Force Awakens. Like you get that cliffhanger with Luke at the end on the mountain. I can see something similar with the younger Luke. So change it so it's definitely not the same scene exactly, but I think that could be a possibility. But we also have other characters such as Ezra Bridger and Cal Kestis. So those are your three choices. Which one do you think could show up?
I mean, honestly, look, perfect world. I love to see Luke. I love to see them de-age Mark Hamill or use Sebastian Stan and splice it like they would. I mean, they have the technology to do it. Um, I don't know about Ezra because we don't really know where he's at right now. Like if we had an idea, okay, I could say Ezra. As for Cal, I'm not really familiar with this story too much. I would want to say Luke. I would love to see that redemption of he is still hopeful. He's trying to rebuild the Jedi Temple. I think a lot of fans were a little salty how they got it in Last Jedi, because at this point Luke would still be very much optimistic. He's all about wanting to bring order to the galaxy and rebuild the Jedi. So it'd be cool to see that. It'd be a nice little payoff. I just don't. I wouldn't want it to hijack the particular show or the scene. But I mean, let's be honest here. We'd all lose our mind if we saw Luke at age
Fall out of my
26.
chair. Just
Yeah, if
be
we
on the
saw
ground.
young Luke with his black Jedi robe and
Yes, the
saber
black outfit, the
walk up
green
on it and say,
lightsaber.
"Oh, I'm here. Let me take." Oh my God, that'd be, oh,
Talk about not being able to sleep that night.
facts.
Definitely not.
Oh yeah, like I agree with you. The only thing about Luke is on a little side thing is if Grogu would go with Luke, we know what would happen to him most likely.
Yeah.
So that's the only
Yeah.
that's the only downside to that. It's kind of like your Bail Organa, like, hey, I'm going back to Alderaan during Rogue One, and you're like, no. But I think there's a good chance, or well, not a good chance. I think there's a chance we could see Luke. Maybe, like you were saying, Chris. Maybe the end of it, Grogu's going to be up on the stone, and then, he reaches out. And what if the season ends with all of a sudden, like someone's eyes open up or something, like they're seeing in the Force, and then it just cuts, like we don't know who it
Ooh.
is. Like that's a
Snoke.
potential. Yeah, Snoke.
It's
Um,
George C.
but
Both.
what if? But my thing is, I mean, with Cal Kestis, that's always a possibility. And Cameron Monaghan, he's such an underrated actor. Like I loved him in Gotham as the Joker. Like he was perfect in that. But I think, in my estimation, I would say my top choice or prediction would be Ezra, and the reason is just because, like you mentioned, Milton. If you bring in Luke, I feel like you have a chance to maybe hijack the show, because then it's giving fans a little too much where it's like, whoa, do we want this to turn into the Luke Skywalker show every week? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd love to see that. But, for this show specifically, it could potentially hijack the entire storyline.
Mhm.
But I think Ezra is a really good option because it pushes the storyline further, and it's just the whole thing of having Filoni involved and Favreau and the people involved. They're obviously they love all of Star Wars, but like they're directly involved with Clone Wars and Rebels. So I think it's a really high chance we may see Ezra, because then that could also connect. Well, then again, I mean, I guess I could talk myself out of that point because maybe it's not Ezra because why would Ahsoka be looking for Thrawn if
Yeah.
Ezra would be on Tython? Because
Yeah.
that means she probably would have checked Tython already at this point in the show. So, or at this point in the timeline. So maybe it wouldn't be Ezra. So, I mean, heck, here's a wild card for both of you. Ewan McGregor was test screening during the Mandalorian's filming, and he was, test screening for Obi-Wan. That's what they told us. But what if we get an Ewan McGregor Force Ghost Obi-Wan talking to Grogu, about his like path or whatever, blah blah
Huh.
blah blah blah.
Ben, if that happens,
What?
I'm going to be going ape shit, which would
Because
be amazing.
because this is what if what if Ewan was on set? What if they said, hey, let's give you a little warm up test scene, some practice for your show coming
Yeah,
up,
I
here
don't-
next year.
I don't know if it
what
works that
because,
way. Because
pardon me?
I don't know if it works that way because I'm pretty sure like every Jedi Ghost has already talked to a person they've had a connection with, right? So
What?
unless Obi-Wan like trained Grogu at one point, which I don't think was possible because he would have been training Anakin at that point. I don't know if he could ever do that technically.
Man,
Well,
I just
Chris, my only disagreement with that though is in canon they haven't really had a connect. Like Force Awakens, you hear Obi-Wan say these are your first steps to Rey, and he hasn't
Mhm.
really talked to her up to that point. So
And then at the end
maybe
of the Rise of Skywalker, all the Jedi were talking to Rey. They gave her the strength to beat Palpatine.
yeah, so like maybe because I think no matter what what Jedi shows up, Ezra, Luke, Obi-Wan, Cal, Mace Windu, whoever.
Mace Windu.
Yeah, Mace Windu, whoever.
I'd love to see
whoever.
that.
Whoever shows up, yeah, gosh, you see Samuel L. Jackson walk out like at the end of Iron Man 1.
Oh God, that'd be amazing.
But I mean, don't get me wrong, I would have a total meltdown. But what if I mean,
What if-
either way, the Jedi is going to have to turn Grogu away because Grogu is the key center point of this show. You can't have this show without him. So I think with that in mind, I think the highest chance then maybe would be, I mean, then again, it could be Luke because Luke could be like, hey, I'm too busy to train a kid right now type of thing. So I don't know. There's limitless possibilities really. And gosh, we only have a few weeks to find out. Or I mean, heck, Grogu's shown some dark side things, like he force choked Cara Dune. He has too much of a connection to Din. What if he reaches out in the Force and we get a flash to the Emperor? I
Oh,
mean,
man, that would be something. Yikes.
I don't know, just throwing out some random ideas.
Yeah, I could maybe see him feeling it if I mean the Emperor's sentient and whatnot in whatever form he is at this point. Is he powerful enough to be able to pick up on something halfway across the galaxy though? I'm not certain, but you can't ever underestimate the Emperor.
Yeah.
Just kind of closing things out for this evening. I did want to touch upon one thing I seen earlier about Thrawn. We mentioned Moff Gideon. We have Ward Laverty. Thrawn and Gideon are most likely working together, which will amp up the stakes. So that's kind of along the lines that I was thinking. Like we were talking, I think, weeks and weeks ago about how Gideon has a master, probably, right? How he has some kind of higher up. Maybe it's Thrawn. And maybe that's how Mando's storyline will intersect with Ahsoka's once more, as they'll find each other both on the path of the leader of this Imperial remnant, which happens to be Thrawn.
which is a possibility. I mean, again, we still don't know enough about Moff Gideon yet, so we still have a lot of story to tell on him. So it wouldn't shock me if we find out that he's working with or serves Thrawn. Again, I think that's one part. That's one thing I can say about the show that is lacking is the overall baddie of this particular show. I mean, we know we have him, but we don't know enough about him yet. I think we're going to start getting that hopefully in the next 3 episodes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
I think. Oh, I think I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree. I think we definitely are going to be getting maybe a little more Gideon, potentially Thrawn, as we talked about weeks ago. Whoever Gideon's boss is going to be. I mean, heck, I could see the end of this season. Forget Ezra or Luke. Heck, we could go from getting mind blown with Ezra and Luke, or Ezra or Luke at Tython, and then it cuts or fades to, a la similar Star Wars Rebels have Thrawn walk out of like a dark room or something, talking to Gideon, and end the season that way. Like think of that live action to end
which
it.
will be off the chain too. I'll take that ending.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That's sounding like a greedy Star Wars fan, but I mean, hey, I think that would be awesome.
This is just great because every week our predictions are going crazier and crazier, like in a different direction. Because every one of these episodes just ends in a certain way that gives us so many plot threads. Like I was thinking about this earlier today. How many other plot threads we have? Plot B, plot C, plot D. For the first episode, we have a plot with Boba Fett. That hasn't resolved yet. I'm hoping it gets resolved or at least continued upon next episode. But then we have the plot with Mandalore. So that's a whole other thing about taking Mandalore back. Now we have a plot about Cara Dune and, accepting her place in the galaxy. If she's going to join the New Republic or do things on her own, that's another plot. We have just new plot this week about Ahsoka and Thrawn and what the heck is going on there. So we have, and of course we have, going to Tython. So there's 5 plot threads right now with Mandalorian. And it's like every week.
We have those clones that we saw too.
Oh, yeah.
That's another plot, So it's like, yeah, we still have to go. Chris, you're right. We got a lot to go through.
We got a lot to go through, and so much more to talk about. But this is going to do it for this episode, number 13 here. Going around the room here, give us your final thoughts on the episode and score out of 10. We're going to start with Milton first on this one.
Yeah, so I thought this was a really strong episode. By far my favorite episode. I probably said that about most of the episodes this season. But I honestly can say so far, this is by far my favorite episode of the series. Because, again, I love Ahsoka. I thought they really did her justice. I am proud of Rosario Dawson and the way she portrayed that character. And another thing I'm proud of? I'm proud of that the voice actress that does Ahsoka in the show.
Ashley Eckstein.
Yeah, Ashley Eckstein. She congratulated her, which was amazing that they're all cool about this.
I love that. I like seeing that.
They're all about expanding their characters, which is awesome. I thought it looked well. I thought it was shot well. The action was awesome. The storytelling was great. 10 out of 10. Great episode. Were there some little flaw stuff in there? Absolutely. Were there some little nitpicky stuff? Absolutely. But this was a 10 out of 10 episode.
Oh yeah, those are definitely really good thoughts. I would say I can echo most of those. I think the episode was really well done. Like I said in the middle of this episode, shout out to Filoni for maturing as a director, but not having Ahsoka be the main character of the show, because that was some of my critiques of even Clone Wars and Rebels. It felt like sometimes we got into a little bit of like the Ahsoka Tano show versus Clone Wars or Rebels. So I was really, really impressed with Filoni in this episode, balancing out her character with the main character of the show, the Mandalorian. So I thought that was very impressive. Just her, her overall, Rosario Dawson's overall presence as Ahsoka, I thought she nailed it. And, this is what we always talk about. This is why you bring in top level actors to play these characters, because she nailed it. Like, she translated the character over perfectly. I love seeing, her lightsaber fighting style. It was just like Rebels. I thought that was excellent. Just some of the little Easter eggs throughout, like Morai the Owl, or Michael Bean's character, like just different little Easter eggs.
Cats.
Yep. those as well. Like there's all different little Easter eggs in this, and then of course the big reveal of Thrawn that was phenomenal, and that just basically opens the door for us for whether it be Thrawn in this show or potential future projects of Ahsoka, Thrawn, and Ezra type of live action show potentially coming out. So with all that in mind, my only nitpick of the show, or not even nitpick, I think it is my critique of this episode, is I think Din coming to this planet, I think it was kind of convenient for him. Like, he's coming. It's convenient that he's showing up the day Ahsoka wants to, like, attack this city. Like, I just felt like it was just a little too convenient. So with that, I'll still give the show a 9.25 out of 10.
Oh, we're going with these 2.25 scores now, huh? I see how it is. Well said, though. Well said. No big deal. Well said, both of you. What I will piggyback off you guys is just, again, this is solid storytelling. Again, with Dave Filoni, he has come back and he has definitely learned a lot from season 1. Not saying they were terrible episodes. I enjoyed both of the ones he did immensely, but this is on a whole nother level. This is like that George Lucas avant-garde style filmmaking that really, and I say filmmaking and it's a damn TV show, because you could just show this in a movie theater and it would really pop for sure. The color palette, everything with the themes. Again, we didn't give enough credit to Ludwig Göransson. This guy made me shed a tear at the end of this episode. Not gonna lie, that whole thing with Ahsoka and her, the way that the score just sweeps upwards at the end of that episode, it just comes to a climax of this huge orchestral wave of Ahsoka's freaking theme, and it immediately like hit me of like all the past memories of Ahsoka, of her leaving the Jedi, of her finding about her master, falling to the dark, like all these raw emotions just like hit me. And I was like, oh my God, man. Like, I did not expect to have this happen to me. But I teared up and it's like, this guy killed the music. The way he put in the Yoda theme sprinkled underneath Yoda when they were on that, the training, talking about the different things about Coruscant and about Grogu's beginnings and all that. Phenomenal stuff there. The way that they are able to tell the larger story of The Mandalorian through these individual episodes, but just telling things, and Ahsoka being brought into live action for the first time, it was pretty much great. But that is also one of the hang-ups for me on the episode, is that I'm still gonna get a little bit used to her appearance, her physical appearance. It's not the biggest deal, but I do have to take off some points off of that. But I will say the fight choreography was awesome. We have seen Ahsoka a couple months ago fight against Darth Maul, and we're getting that same combat in this episode, but in live action, with a Beskar staff against these two dual lightsabers was really striking. Seeing that whole standoff, like Western style duel between Michael Bihn's character and Mando in the streets, like that was just straight out of a Western right there. And it's something I've been waiting for in The Mandalorian since we've seen Cobb Vanth and him about to duke it out in the streets of Tatooine. So that finally came around. But yeah, all in all, great episode. I don't know if it's my favorite of the series of the season, but I'm still going to have to give it a 9 out of 10. So there you have it, guys. That was our discussion for The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 5, aka Chapter 13, The Jedi. Real quick shout out to everybody involved in the chat tonight. We had Christopher Weber, we had The Lowdown Show, we had Steven Schimber, Scrambled Goose stop by, we had, let's see, Ward Lafferty, we had, let's see, there's somebody else in here, but yeah, thank you. We had Alex Elkins, we had Keegan Maynard, everybody, Chris Forsyth, everybody that joined in on the chat, thank you so much. We do this every week, Sundays at 8 o'clock Eastern time, so make sure you catch us next week as we talk about Season 2, Episode 6, and we don't know the name of the episode, but it'll be Chapter 14. Not sure who it's written or who it's directed by or what could even happen, because, like I said, I think last week, we have caught up to all the footage that was in the actual trailer, So we have no idea what's going to happen, which is always exciting. We don't even have a chapter description or anything to go by. So
Right.
anything could happen. It's going to be very exciting, but definitely come back next week as we will break down the episode as we usually do. So that's going to do it for me, for Milton, and for Ben. You can follow Ben at Real Ben Maynard on Twitter, and you can follow Milton at Milton Weber 7 on Twitter, and you can always follow me at Star Raptor on Twitter, and make sure you subscribe to the channel so that way you'll be notified when we go live every single week. A Mando episode comes out. So that's going to do it for us. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always. See you guys next week, and this is the way. Okay, there we go.